Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for tuning in. John Kelly, profiler here, and welcome. And I want to say welcome today also to Pam Bogart, great researcher, great detective. She's done a lot of great investigative work over the years for probation, and she's done a lot of great research and investigative work for us at STALK. We're glad to have her as a member of STALK Incorporated. So welcome, Pam. It's good to have you.
John. Great to be here.
Also today, we're going to be talking about Bryan Kohberger, and the questions are going to be in why he killed, and what really was underneath the rage that it took to kill these girls. This is something that's very important to us to try to get to the root cause, what goes on in these people. So it's going to be about the what and the why today of Bryan Kohberger, who is absolutely positively innocent until proven guilty in a court of law. Make no mistake about it, okay? He is innocent until proven guilty in a court of law, but he is the major suspect in this case, and law enforcement is saying he's a major killer. He's the mass murderer. So we're going to be checking out a lot on him today. Please hang with us, and always send us your comments. We love your comments. Also, if you like what we're doing, hit a like. If you want to subscribe, we'd love to have you in the family. So most importantly, let us know how you feel. And please be kind to each other, while you're making your comments out there. Also, this is my book, Discovering Lazarus, The Good, the Bad, the Ugly of John Kelly. How I survived a horrific cocaine addiction, became a counselor, a psychotherapist, and then moved on to becoming a profiler. And if I can do it, if I can recover from addictive illness, so can you. Remember again, John Kelly's Thrive, okay, the channel with all the addictive illness education. All right, with all that being said, again, we'll lead into this by saying that Mr. Kohberger is innocent until proven guilty. So, Pam, what jumps out at you so far? I mean, you've picked up on a few different things with this case, but there's some, really, really strange but exciting and stimulating pieces that we're seeing coming out from all the documents and evidence that are coming out. So what do you say?
Well, I think the prosecution has a lot of good evidence, really against him, and I mean, recently we heard about, the balaclava that was purchased from that was purchased from Dick's Sporting Goods, like back in January of 22, and all the Amazon purchases that the defense is saying that could be other family members like purchasing that. Well, if that's the knife and the sheath and the knife sharpener, if that's all true, let the family members come forward with the where is this the stuff that was bought, right? Because
exactly.
The defense is saying, yeah, it's a family account, but and the most recent selfie picture really kind of nails it as far as his eyebrows go, and I don't think the defense wants that coming out. And that's an interesting clip of him too, because it was taken like 4 hours after the murders took place.
Yeah, that really jumps out at me, Pam, and I'll tell you why. Usually with these mass murderers, something happens to set them off. Something goes awry, to kind of push their button and get them off on a murder spree. And I really believe that, this guy, Bryan, knew he was heading towards getting asked to leave or let go from his job at the college, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of students were complaining. And I think you brought up, or someone brought up, there were a lot of female students that were complaining about him, right? Right. And I think this really stuck in his craw. I mean, this really was the igniter, okay, that ignited his rage. I mean, he didn't have really good relationships with women or girls to begin with, and I think that this just, was the straw that broke the camel's back, to be honest to you. So he's being let go from the job, and we usually see this with mass murderers. Usually there's an igniter, there's a trigger that sets them off and gets them to do a mass murderer, or even may set off a serial killer, to go and start a killing spree, right? Something usually takes place. They usually lose a job, which is interesting here because it looks like he was losing his job.
Right.
They usually have a relationship go bad on them. Usually something happens where they feel extremely disrespected or abandoned in some way. So there's usually a trigger or an igniter. And I think when he had a couple of talks with the professors and they were leading him to believe he may not be around too much longer at class and teaching, that really set him off. And then if he is the killer, he goes out, he does his job, kills these kids, and he goes from failure on the job now to what he believes is achievement of the perfect crime, right? And then he takes a nice shower, he looks in the mirror, does a nice selfie of himself, you know, like as if he's achieved, he's accomplished, I can actually kind of feel the gratification that's going through him at that time by looking at that picture. Okay. And certainly you think to yourself, wow, this is hours after these people have been murdered. I mean, wow, we got one sick little pup here if he's the guy, right? I mean, if he's the guy, there's a pretty sick puppy here. Okay. So I totally agree with you. I mean, wow, I did it. Thumbs up. I achieved, See, he doesn't know that DNA is on the button of that knife.
Right.
Keep that in mind while he's doing all this other stuff. He doesn't realize that. He thinks he's gotten away. He's cleaned up everything, his fingerprints. You never heard of his fingerprints being on anything.
Right.
Right? Surprise.
Yep.
Go ahead, Pam.
No, I was just gonna say you're right about all of that. And yeah, I mean, do you think that with that selfie, I mean, do you think that was sent to anybody? Or do you think that was just
Who knows? Who knows? I
yeah,
think he's so narcissistic. He just didn't care. I think he was just bathing in the
the glory?
the light of achievement. I mean, he was just bathing in his achievement at that point in time. You
Yeah.
know, I mean, he looked very, very, very happy and confident, that he conquered, he achieved.
Right.
That's what I look at.
Right.
And this guy too has a history of doing a lot of different things as well. I mean, they were talking to some kids that went to school with him when he was in college, and then he was at a wedding, and he had a friend, female friend at the wedding, and he and her were talking, and she was glad that he had cleaned up, because he was on heroin or whatever. Yeah, heroin. And then he turns around and he manipulates her and has her driving him all around. She didn't know why he needed to go here, there, or whatever. He was giving her a bunch of excuses. So she was doing the driving. But actually, he was trying to find places to score from what she said. So he was manipulating her. So you can see this manipulation going on pretty early on, and of course, addicts of all types, myself included, especially heroin addicts. I mean, when they're active, right? When somebody's active, they're going to manipulate to do whatever they got to do to get their drug because they need their drug. So, I mean, manipulation has been part of this guy's life for quite a while. And then all of a sudden, he turns around and he ends up in the limelight for recovering, losing weight, and then, I know you'll speak to this, this coordination kind of diagnosis or whatever he got. But actually, remember when he was boxing I mean,
Yeah.
that's not somebody with bad coordination,
Exactly.
doing push-ups when for that military thing that,
Right.
part of the school they had like a military kind of class or something for people that wanted to learn a little bit about the military and maybe do some exercises, maybe some marching or whatever, right? So this guy, I mean, he's quite the manipulator here, it seems at times. I mean, there's nothing wrong with his coordination. I mean, a man could run a 6 minute mile. I mean, my gosh, I mean, there's nothing wrong with somebody like coordination that can do that pretty much.
Right. And they're saying that, what is the developmental coordination disorder, that, he wouldn't be able to have committed these murders if he had that.
Yeah, I mean, now you got these kids that are probably hungover, drunk, whatever, they were partying, or sober, and not even know what hit them. Yeah, I mean, and you got a big, strong guy like him, in this kind of shape that can run 6 minute miles. If he is the killer running through the house with this big knife, I mean, yeah, that can be done pretty quickly for somebody that's in the kind of shape he's in, you know. I mean, it's not like he stayed there for any length of time and cut the bodies up or anything like that. I mean, he was in and out of there. And I think the euphoria overwhelmed them of possibly and probably in his mind committing the perfect crime. In other words, you may not think I'm good enough to teach, okay, criminology, but
Yeah.
let me tell you something.
Right.
I can commit the perfect crime. That's how good I am. That's how smart I am. That's how much I know. If he is the killer, I've got away with this. I've got away with this. I was able to pull this off. And then you go back. What do you think about this thesis he wrote about cleaning up a crime scene?
Exactly.
And then,
Exactly. They're
go
gonna
ahead.
use, they're gonna bring that in the prosecution, I think, as some kind of evidence too. Because there are some similarities in that report that he wrote to, the crime scene
Mhm.
and the murder. I mean, it was about a woman who was stabbed to death in a trailer park.
Stabbed to death, and then you say to yourself, was that always part of his fantasy?
Right.
All right, using that knife as a phalanx weapon, right? I mean, I'm sorry, phallic symbol. All right.
Right.
I mean, because that's what these guys do. That becomes an extension of their penis. All right. I
Right.
mean, that's the way they look at it. I mean,
Well,
because he cannot be sexually involved with a woman. He's had no serious relationships. So we see a lot of different people like this that use a knife, to be an extension of themselves.
right. It's almost like that's what they have to conquer with. That's their penis that they're conquering with, is a knife.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty incredible, isn't it?
Mhm.
I mean, it's pretty crazy, but it's very true. It's very true. I mean, there's even talk out there about when serial killers use pistols. That it's the same situation. Because the bullet is entering the woman internally, right?
Right.
So there's a lot. I mean, we have to understand we're dealing with insane people. Okay, I mean, I'm not saying you know that they can be called legally insane and don't know what they're doing at the time they're doing it, but their very actions, and it's just a play on words, just semantics. But my feeling is anybody that is going to do this to four young people is insane, criminally insane. That's what I'm going to say. Criminally, I don't, I don't give it a second thought about using those words or those terms.
Yeah. I was going to say, it's also like just the showing of buying all these things, the mask, the knife, the sheath, the sharpener, the clothes. you know, it's all premeditated because they were all bought in advance. This is not a spur of the moment type of thing, you know? It's took a lot of planning.
Yeah, and I think the sheet was that purchased, if I'm correct. And if not, please tell me, folks. But wasn't the sheet purchased after the first sheet was found under the girl at the college? I think it was under Maddie or under Kaylee, I don't know, but I mean, there was a second sheet that he tried to purchase, I understand. And I'm wondering if it was after.
I would think it would be after, right?
I would assume so.
Right.
I would assume so. Very, very bad moves. See, all these moves that he made are telling and incriminating. All right. So you ask yourself, how does, this very seemingly smart criminologist, if we'll call him, or on his way to becoming a criminologist, how does somebody this smart, that's this smart with criminal justice and in the criminal justice system, how does he make these mistakes? Right? Because they're blatant, they're all over the place. I mean, right on the internet, buying knives and buying all these clothes and, cover-ups and stuff like that, pretty much everything that the prosecution came out with. But we have to always remember, we can't forget that he doesn't know that they have his DNA. See, he's buying this stuff, okay? And maybe the sheet is purchased after he finds out they have his DNA. But all this stuff, that he's gone back to try and cover up the crime, or that he was complicit in using in the crime, is out there already. And he's sitting back, giving himself a thumbs up, thinking he, created the perfect crime. He got away with the perfect crime.
Mhm.
But there's that little piece of DNA he forgot about. He was smart, I'm sure. I'll bet money on it that he wiped that sheet down. You will not find any of his fingerprints. He wiped everything down. Plus, he's really a clean Nick, if you will, right? So he cleaned all that down, but he forgot about that little button. This little button can put him right in front of a firing squad.
Right.
So he's all smug, thumbs up in the mirror.
Mm-hmm.
Bottom line, don't celebrate too soon, Charlie. You know what I mean? Because you left a little something on that sheet in that little button.
Right.
And
And
you don't know it yet, but they're coming for you in the middle of the night. Go ahead, Pam. I'm
I was
sorry.
going to say, and that stacked up with all the other, evidence, really kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. And this guy always wanted to achieve. It was important for him to achieve. Even his classmates talked about him. He couldn't shut up in class. He kept jumping up with the answers. Some of his professors thought he was brilliant.
Mhm.
Well, he may have been brilliant. I mean, brilliant people do kill people. And brilliant people do get caught for killing people. I mean, it just happens. It just happens. Because, there's no such thing as the perfect crime. I really believe that, except when we talk about balaclava. Am I pronouncing it right? Balaclava?
Balaclava, yeah.
Balaclava. I mean, where did I first hear that? Well, that's, Mr. Cruel. Mr. Cruel over in Australia. And he did commit the perfect crimes. They never got him.
Right, because they couldn't, but his balaclava was covered all the way though. I mean, I think there was just holes for the eyes. Like this balaclava, if the picture of it is like, it's open with the eyes and then, it comes up over the nose. And yeah, I mean, so and that's all that Dylan saw. You
Right.
think about this, they're discrediting her because she you know, they're saying that she was drunk or whatever, but, or it was in the dark and she couldn't really identify him. Well, he was all in black. He had this mask on that only showed his eyes and his eyebrows. So if there's a stream of light coming through, all you're going to see is, you know, are those bushy eyebrows. She got his height right. She got his build right. I mean, you know, how can you identify somebody that's covered all up like that?
Yeah, those bushy eyebrows stand out big time.
Exactly.
Big time. You know, I mean, there's no question about it, you know. I mean, he's a pretty strange guy, there's no question about it. And you know, I truly believe if he didn't get caught, I mean, and again, if he's the killer, which I believe he is, my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I got to tell you something. If he didn't get caught, I think you'd have a lot of bodies. And I think it should be seeing kind of a Bundy situation where his focus would be on blondes.
Right.
I think this guy really focused on blondes. And they have him in that area, you know, quite a few times. He's been in that area a number of times, you know. So he's been sitting out there, you know, peering in the windows at these girls. He saw them somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't know where he saw them, but he saw them somewhere. I had to see them.
Well, wasn't that car detected around that house like many times before?
A number of times, yeah.
And
Yeah.
I think I remember reading about the Wi-Fi was even connected at some point, right? Didn't he kind of like connect to their Wi-Fi in the house, or was that
You
just?
know, that's hearsay,
Yeah.
but it's something that could be believed because this guy was pretty smart.
Well, if you're sitting in your car and you're on your phone, you're close enough to the house, I guess, you know.
He was pretty smart. You know, when it came to computers and such.
Right.
He's pretty smart, you know. And you know, it's the bottom line, like I think in Silence of the Lambs, uh, you know, you covet what you see.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you have to see it to covet it, right? So he saw them somewhere. There's no question about that. And I just think he came out that night with a lot of hormones running and a lot of volcanic rage. And he was into some type of sexual, rageful fantasy. And unfortunately, these students were the blunt of it. Is there anything you want to say before we break or talk about anything else?
I don't think so, John. I mean, unless you want to talk about that scratch on the
Well, that's a good point.
yeah.
Yeah, Leo put up a picture on that.
I
You
was
could show that scratch. Show his that's on his right hand. Am I correct?
it's on his right wrist. It's like
Right
above the
wrist. Yeah, we want the audience to see the scratches when he got pulled over on his way back to Pennsylvania with his father.
I just wanted
Right
to
wrist. All right.
yeah, I wanted to give credit to police off the cuff because they mentioned it the other night.
Excellent. That was great. That was a great
Yeah.
great
Which
catch.
caused me to sort of like, look at it again,
Yeah.
sort of enlarge it. And to me, it really looks like a cut. But then if you look at that selfie, like that's on his right hand or right above his right hand, but the selfie is done with a left hand.
Yeah, he doesn't show the selfie with the right hand.
Right, that right hand,
He shows it with the left hand.
yeah, that hand is not in the picture at all.
He doesn't want that. Maybe he doesn't want
No,
that hand
yeah.
right?
Yeah,
All right. Well, again, he's innocent until proven guilty, so we'll see what happens at trial. If there is a trial. You know, we got to give a lot of kudos here to law enforcement for them grabbing this guy. and grabbing them quickly. At
Yep.
the time, it felt like it was taking forever to catch somebody because you had a psychopath, a maniac running loose on campus. You wonder who's going to get killed next. So, of course, it's feeling like it's longer than it is. But law enforcement did a fantastic job.
And they kept everything
Stellar
tight to
job.
the vest. Yep, they kept everything tight to the vest too, which I think was a great idea because everybody was speculating, you know, and it's,
Very important.
yeah.
Very important. All right. Well, Pam, thank you so much.
Thank
We
you,
really
John.
enjoy having you and certainly look forward to having you again. And to all our viewers out there, you take care of yourself. Thanks for tuning us in. You know, have a great day. Stay on your toes. We live in a violent world. Be careful. And until we meet again, God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.